Okay, what's good, everybody? Today is Monday, May 12th, 2025. It's Luther Wilson III here on another YouTube video talking about real estate. For those that don't know, I'm a broker with Upside Property Services here in the Kansas City market, investor as well. Been working closely with investors for over a decade and helping everyday home buyers and sellers get to it as well. And so in today's session, I'm going to talk about risk, okay? So it's a big thing. It's a part of real estate investing, and it does not get talked about a whole lot amongst investors in the investor community. So I want to talk about it here today. And as I was thinking about what I was going to say on today's talk, I thought to myself, I hadn't really looked up the meaning of risk. I don't know if I ever have looked it up online or in a dictionary as long as I've been on this planet. Despite being a bit of a wordsmith and a former spelling bee runner-up, I had not looked it up. I just thought like, hey, we hear it in passing, and you see stuff in the news or in the community, and you just think you know what it is. But I had never really taken the time to look it up. So I brought some notes today, of course, and so I did a web search. I just typed in risk online. And according to the American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language, 5th edition, the very first definition of risk is the possibility of suffering harm or loss. And then it says danger, okay? The second one, it says a factor, thing, element, or course involving uncertain danger. And then it says a hazard, okay? And of course I got the help from AI a little bit. So I wanted to type in on Grok. I used Grok AI this time, and I asked it, how would you define the word risk? And I wanted it to think about it. So it took a few minutes, like a minute or two, and it spit out quite a bit. But let's get to the bottom of it. A comprehensive definition of risk based on Grok AI, all right? And it says, risk is the possibility of experiencing harm, loss, or an adverse outcome as a result of an action, decision, or situation, often involving uncertainty and taken in pursuit of a potential benefit, all right? That sounds, like my life pretty much as a real estate pro and beyond that. And that pretty much sums it up. And so when it comes to risk in regard to investing in real estate, because I'm sure that's what you want to know, right? I'm going to go over a few of the main types of risk that investors face, okay? And then I'm going to get into my top 4 or 5 ways of being able to mitigate risk, all right? So let's see here. Why risk management matters, okay? Every real estate deal has risk, whether it's a single family home or a big commercial play. And what's interesting is a single bad investment can erase the gains from multiple good ones if you're not careful, okay? Managing risk is not an option, okay? It's the backbone of long-term success, all right? So what are we up against, right? Three of the main risks that we face as real estate investors, okay? The first one, market risk, okay? The second one, property risk, okay? And then the third one, financing risk. And if you've been involved in real estate as an investor or a practitioner who works with investors, then inherently you or your clients have dealt with this, okay? Regardless of whether you've talked about it or discussed it, it's inherent in what we do, okay? So market risk, all right? Think of where we're at right now. We are dealing with, in 2025, okay, second quarter, still feeling the effects of high inflation, okay? We got interest rates that are still relatively high. In general, in the grand scheme of things, over the last few decades, real estate interest rates or mortgage interest rates aren't really that high, but between 2022, okay, actually between 2021 and 2022, interest rates doubled. So that's where we're at right now. And in the US, the job market is kind of weird. I don't know how else to put it. So there's a lot of different things going on that are out of our control, and the interest rates, our income, the value of the dollar, okay, all affects revenue as investors, all right? So property risk. I mentioned that on my last video and on some of my live streams on Facebook and I think on Instagram as well. I listed off 2 of the best ways to navigate renovation projects, okay? And we're gonna get into a little bit of that later, okay? Property risk, unexpected repairs, tenant issues, and vacancies that can absolutely kill your cash flow, okay? So next up, financing risks, okay? I mentioned interest rates earlier, right? With interest rates being darn near double what they were before, it's a lot harder for investors to cash flow their properties, right? When you're talking the effects of higher inflation, the labor and material costs have gone up and have fluctuated. That affects your spread when you're talking about rehabbing a property to then refi or resell. It all ties in together, all right? And then, you know, loan defaults, that's another thing. And in my past videos, I've cautioned investors as I talk about funding and financing, when you're dealing with short-term debt or medium-term or long-term debt that has a balloon on it, okay? That's part of the financing risk. If you are borrowing money and in 6 to 12 months or maybe 3 to 5 years, you have to pay that loan back in full, that affects how you can invest. And it's definitely going to affect your portfolio and your investments, okay? So those are 3 of the main risks that we face as real estate investors and as practitioners, okay? So now, let's get into the 5 ways that we can minimize risk and limit our exposure, okay? So, number 1, all right, skip the big renovation project, right? The temptation is strong for investors, especially those that haven't really been in the game. I can't tell you how many aspiring investors, they're looking to do their first deal. They want to flip a house for some reason. We are obsessed with wanting to turn something inside out, and we're not really thinking so much about what that's going to entail, how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, okay? And I mentioned it before, 2 of the biggest pain points for real estate investors have to deal with construction. The other one is property management, okay? So 2 of the best ways to navigate renovation projects: 1, don't do them. Avoid them if you can, right? There's other ways to turn your money or invest your capital via real estate, via the stock market, whatever, right? So that's one big thing. If you can figure out how to place your capital or invest your money that you worked hard for and save for and all that stuff, avoid the renovations. The second one, minimize it, right? If you could take on smaller projects, okay? If you're on the ground in the state or the city or close to the city where you're investing, and you can check up on progress every week, multiple times a week, and you decide to take on a project, if you can minimize you know, instead of trying to rehab a 100-year-old house for your very first deal, okay, and you're halfway across the country, you might look at doing something in your home state within 20, 30 minutes of where you live on maybe multifamily, single families where we play, right? That's where we've seen the best results, and taking on a project that is not necessarily so large, okay? That's number 1. Number 1 way that I mitigate risk as an investor. And I'm talking to more investors about it lately than I have before about loaning money, right? So there's that. Second one, all right? Second way that I mitigate risk as a real estate investor and a practitioner with my clients: location, all right? Not enough investors talk about this either. That's been the number 1 rule for investing for the last several decades, right? But we don't think about it. A lot of investors, they hit me up, and I'm guilty of it too. They're gonna go online, they're gonna go on Zillow, they're gonna have their realtors send them all the cheapest properties in that metropolitan area or in that city. Red flag, don't do it. I'm telling you, D class, what is D class? You got A, B, and C class, what the heck? Do we need to go lower than C class? C class is hard enough, okay? Because, right, you have older properties, right? You typically have a city, you got urban areas where the school qualities are rated rather low in general, I'm just saying, okay? And then you got older homes, okay? Higher crime in the city, it just is what it is. All those different factors all deal with location and also tie in affordability with that too, because as I said earlier, in regards to location, we think that, okay, if we go to the cheapest areas, in town, that they're gonna be more affordable. Well, you're gonna wanna think about that again. Maybe go a step or two above that, all right? In that way, another key point that I wanna hit as far as location and affordability, if you're doing B class areas, maybe A minus, maybe B minus if you're lucky, you're going to be able to attract the largest potential pool of residents, buyers, or tenants. Are you with me? Because if you're in the high range, then of course it's going to be more expensive and not many people are going to be able to afford that. As I mentioned earlier, if you're going C class, D class, a lot of people can afford that. A lot of people want to get up out of there though. You feel me? So if you go B class, maybe A minus, you are going to be able to find those people, those families, those couples who are trying to come up. And then also, times like these, challenging, lots of volatility, lots of uncertainty, a lot of people are feeling the pinch, they need to downsize. So you're gonna be able to attract all types of people for that type of property, okay? Location affordability, that's the second way that I mitigate risk as a real estate pro, okay? Number 3, think long term, okay? This is huge. Not enough investors talk about this either. We get so obsessed, it's just human nature. We live in a microwave society. We wanna get in, we wanna get out. We don't want no strings attached. We don't want no long-term partnerships. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to about that. But that's not the way to go. If you really wanna succeed and win and limit your exposure and mitigate risk, you gotta think long-term. How I see it, okay? If we're going short-term on a loan, okay, as a private money lender, okay, or if we're going short-term on a fix and flip where you want to rehab and resell, you are really limiting yourself, okay? Because at the end of that project or that transaction or that deal, you either come out ahead or you don't. You either make money or you don't. You might break even, which at the end of the day is probably a loss because you can't get that time back. It's gonna take a while probably for you to get your energy back too. The money's gone. So however, if you're looking long term, it's not so much how much you made or how much you lost. It's more so, okay, how much revenue or cash flow am I getting each month or each quarter? And how much, if any, capital do I have left in that investment, okay? So you can calculate your cash on cash return. Number one way that I like to calculate returns on the investment. It's one of the easiest ways without getting convoluted to calculate your return on your investment. Okay, that's really it. It's not so much did you make money or did you lose money, it's how much capital is left in that particular deal and how much cash flow are you getting each month, each quarter. What is your cash on cash, okay? Some of them you get lucky on the perfect bird, the rehab, refi, the rent, whatever, and you get all of your initial capital invested that you invested back out, which is a lot more challenging to do today, still doable. Or if you go in now, how I'm advising my partners and clients, knowing that we're going to need cushions and reserves for incidentals, which leads me to my next point. But you go in with expectations that are a little bit more realistic, knowing that, okay, we're going to have to invest. Investments inherently, I think some people don't even consider it an investment if it's not 3 to 5 years type of thing. So that's kind of how I look at it. You choose how you want to operate. I'm just saying, capital, strategy, operations, all ties in together with the risk mitigation, baby. Come on. So think long term. It's more safe, more secure. How much capital is tied up in the investment, how much you cashed on. Pretty simple. Okay, I alluded to it earlier. Cushions and reserves. As you are looking at opportunities and you're doing deals and you're growing your real estate enterprise, cushions and reserves are going to become more and more important. The more doors you have, the more cushions and reserves that you are going to want to have access to, okay, for a number of things. Overages on the renovation costs. You got interest payments or mortgage payments during vacancies, okay? You got, don't forget about your silent partner, Uncle Sam, okay, who's gonna wanna get his at some point or another type of thing. So it's gonna be important. You got permits, you got attorney fees, okay? You got deductibles on your insurance if a claim needs to be filed, and the list goes on. So before I sign on a document to represent a buyer or to start a new LLC with a joint venture partner, the capital investor, I need to ask them multiple times and confirm, do you understand how this works? Show me the money. How much capital was there? Okay, we're probably gonna need more than that, okay, at some point or another. So just that is part of mitigating risk. And if you don't have it, I understand that most investors do not go in this way. This is stuff that I've learned the hard way and have learned from mentors who've been in the game for twice as long as I have. And I'm learning from colleagues who are going through hell like I've gone through type stuff, okay? So going in, cushions and reserves is critical, very important, all right? And I was gonna say something. Most investors aren't gonna do it. But deep down, you probably know someone close to you, family member, friend, whose shoulder you could tap or whose coat you could pull. You know in the back of your head that you're gonna probably do that if worse comes to worse, so keep that in mind too. Who are you connected with? Who's in your circle? So if something happens, you know, hey, I goofed up, I'm gonna need some help. Reach out to so-and-so in your community. There's local meetups. I mentioned friends and family. The list goes on there. So that, okay, those are the top four. Actually, those are the bottom four ways that I like to minimize risk and limit exposure as an investor, working with my clients who invest as well. Number one way that I like to minimize risk is seller financing. Y'all have seen me hype this up for the last couple years, and there's a reason for it, okay? Seller financing, and again, you could refer back to some past videos. You combine all of this together, that's a winning combination. You have a winning investment model. You actually have an investment model that you can repeat and duplicate over and over again. You buy properties that are ready to go or almost ready to go. You're using good debt, okay? You got your reserves, you got your team, you got your partnerships, you got however that's set up. You do seller financing on top of that. That means you're not dealing with tenants and toilets. That means you're dealing with homeowners, potential homeowners, residents, not just tenants, okay? Who are gonna treat the property in a manner as if it's theirs, because essentially it is, okay? Then you best believe if you're gonna be putting a family in a home, notice how I say home, right? This is their home. They don't wanna just stay there for a year and save money. They don't wanna just stay there for 2-3 years while they get their credit together and save up for the down payment. This is their home. So the turnover is gonna be low. Your vacancy rate is gonna be super low. All of those factors together make seller financing absolutely clutch, especially when times are uncertain as we are going through right now. the performance on our seller finance notes or our seller finance homes is probably better now than it was when we had low interest rate environment and free money and hella stimulus checks. You feel me? Literally, our buyers are looking to cash out because they got equity and they paid like clockwork for years on end. You feel me? So that's the number one way that we look at mitigating risk. Okay, seller financing, right? I mentioned, let's recap, right? I talked about the main risk as real estate investors and practitioners. There's the market risk, we went through that. Went over property risk, okay? If you want to take on rehabs, just be mindful. Financing risks. You've heard me say that time and time again. Be mindful of balloon payments. Be mindful of short-term debt. Be mindful of adjustable rate mortgages. Those are the top 3 risks for investors, okay? Then I went through the top 5 ways to mitigate risk, okay? Renovation projects, be mindful of those, okay? Location, affordability, huge, okay? Number 3, think long-term as a true investor, okay? Number 4, capital. Have your cushions and reserves. And of course, number 5, seller financing, baby. So again, I talk about capital, strategy, and operations, and all the stuff that I mentioned is in there, right? So hit me up if you want to know more. Again, risk is not the enemy. Make it your friend. Choose wisely how you want to operate. It's just a part of the real estate game, okay? Another key part that I got to mention before I go is running things like a business, okay? If you can get yourself to the point where you can pay yourself to operate the real estate investments so that on your fix and flips, you're not waiting 90 days to 9 months or maybe a year and a half to get paid, or on however you're doing whatever type of investments, getting yourself paid, getting your team paid so that you're not waiting months or years on end to get paid. Also another key part, all right? So appreciate you tuning in. If you've liked what you have heard, hit that like button. If you want to stay plugged in for when I release more content on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. And again, we're in Kansas City here making it happen, and we want to see you succeed too. So that's it for today. Have a great day. Peace.